Now, the military authorities in Egypt say they'll take strong action to protect national security after deadly clashes between Muslims and Christians in Cairo. At an emergency cabinet meeting, ministers promised what they called an iron fist to restore order. The Egyptian state television now says 12 people were killed by Saturday's clashes. Jonathan Head reports.
The site was well secured by military units this morning. But last night they were unable to prevent a serious outbreak of sectarian fighting in the very centre of the capital. 2 churches were burnt, along with other buildings. The number of dead and injured, around 200. Local people say this isn't real Muslim-Christian animosity. It's a deliberate attempt to stir up hatred.
There are people who want to create problems between Muslims and Christians by saying there is sectarian strife. This is not true. Yesterday we were Muslims and Christians together, putting out the fire.
The church had been surrounded by a mob of conservative Salafi Muslims demanding it hand over a woman they believed had converted to Islam. These claims and protests over them have been made repeatedly in recent months. But how a protest degenerated into this much distraction is unclear. There have been other similar incidents since the Egyptian uprising in February, and they're straining relations between Muslims and the Christian minority at a difficult time in the country's transition to democratic government.
And we'll get the very latest on the ground from Jonathan Head in Cairo a little later. But with me in the studio now is Dr. Ibrahim Habib. He's president of the United Copts of Great Britain. Thanks very much indeed for joining us here on BBC News. Is there any reason why we're seeing this upsurge in religious violence now? I mean, we had clashes, 2 months ago, I think, as well.
Well, since the revolution, we've seen most of the Salafi imprisoned Salafis, including the people who were included or killed the President Anwar Sadat, like al-Zumur. They were released from prison. We know that Abu al-Zumur stayed his period of imprisonment, and so many other people were released, and there is an atmosphere of freedom, sometimes chaotic freedom. And now we can see that the Salafis, strange enough, when they came out of prison, some of them were treated as heroes, and they found the ground and, listening ears, and they seem to be presented as, legitimate, strong group.
So these are very, very conservative, traditional Muslims who the Mubarak regime kept under lock and key, effectively.
Yes, under the emergency laws. Some of them stayed beyond their period, and some of them were imprisoned without trial. And of course, we understand that there is a lot of Salafi ideology in Egypt. A lot of radicalization took place during Sadat and during Mubarak time. There was a lot of ideology from Saudi Arabia, the Salafi Wahhabi Islam, very strict Islam, which rejects the non-Muslim and treat them as infidels, and they basically persecute and mistreat and try to coerce the non-Muslims either to convert or whatever.
So you're saying the violence is all one way?
Oh yes, definitely yes.
But Christians do have their own concerns, don't they? I mean, they're only 10% of the population, they're a minority. As you say, there has been discrimination against them in the past. Now that the Mubarak regime has gone, I mean, isn't there a suggestion that Christians are trying to reassert themselves?
Definitely, this is not the situation. Over the last 30 years, there have been hundreds of murdered Christians for no other reason than they being Christians, and not a single persecution, except maybe 1 or 2 cases of persecution took place. And there is over the last 3-4 years, there is a government-sponsored informal reconciliation sessions held between the perpetrator of violence and their victims, And this is something not heard of in any law. And the outcome of this is the perpetrator of violence or the criminal element reconcile with the victim, and the criminal gets scot-free. No persecution, no punishment, which give an atmosphere of impunity to the fundamentalist Muslim to have, free hand in persecuting Christians.
Right.
And this is a wrong message given for the last so many years.
Okay, we'll leave it there. Dr. Ibrahim Habib, it's good to have you in. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much.